Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our March Division III webinar. We're so pleased that you are joining us. My name is Bill Regan. I am with our Division III governance staff, and I'm joined by my colleague, Jeff Myers, who's with our Division III AMA staff. Some housekeeping items. You're on mute, so if you have a question, please ask you to use the Q&A function, and then when your question comes up, Katie Mucci, who's also with us, will help facilitate those questions. A recording of today's session will be available by the end of the week on .org. With that, let's move forward, Katie. What we want to do is provide you a little bit background about Division III Federated Playing Rules process. Katie, if you can go forward. Before we jump into the process itself, maybe a little bit of a background. So our Constitution that was adopted several years ago provided the opportunity for the divisions to adopt division-specific playing rules. In light of that constitutional provision, our Management Council established a playing rules process specifically for Division III. That process is really based on a couple principles, or three principles that you see here. One, that we should be looking at playing rules, but those playing rules should be considered only upon adequate input from Division III. That playing rules should remain common. We all want to play by the same rules as much as possible, except where it is necessary for Division III to maybe deviate from what is established as a common playing rule. And that we really wanted the Management Council really wanted the playing rules process to fit within the current rules-making process rather than creating an entirely separate one. So you'll see the process really is intended to fit within that particular playing rules process. Katie, if you can go to the next slide. A couple tenets to think about when we think about the Federated Playing Rules process. Really wanted only the Division III members of both the rules and of prop to be voting on Division III specific issues. Secondly, that the Division III Federated Playing Rules process should really be dealing with those issues that have a significant financial impact or playing rules, or go to have a philosophical impact. And really, when we're talking about that, we're really talking about things that are core principles for Division III, like participation. And really what this is doing is highlighting the need to ensure that the membership is aware of those particular rules, especially when it comes to the surveys, so we can make sure that we get adequate Division III responses in those surveys to help inform our Division III committee members, as well as the sport committees, as well as the playing rule members when it comes to dealing with playing rules issues. To help our Division III members on the playing rules, the process does involve our sport committees. So as a playing rules being considered, the corresponding Division III Sport Committee will provide input and will meet with our members, and Jeff will go over that process. Again, what it's really intended to do is to help augment and amplify the Division III voice and ensure enough perspectives are involved in the specific process. The last bullet is really something was just recently added by our Management Council. That is, the Management Council now has a subcommittee, and that subcommittee will also be involved in this process. As playing rules are being considered to continue to try to provide additional voices into the process. The hope is that with Management Council just increases the perspective that is being used when considering a potential playing rule and its potential impact on the Division III membership. Katie, if you can move forward. So what rules can be federated? Well, almost anything can be federated, but there are a couple provisions. If something impacts our health and safety of a student athlete, those will remain common. Prop is also identified, as you can see here, a list of other rules that it believes should remain common, unless there's a reason why they should not be. And that really says that they're up to a heightened level of scrutiny when we are considering whether to federate. Things like that are scoring and timing. We all think that the game should be scored in the same way. The dimensions of the field, conduct rules, uniform rules, equipment rules, and penalty rules. Really hoping that all those would remain common. However, the Division III can federate those rules, provided it has rationale for doing so. Katie, if you can move to the next slide. Types of decisions that can be made by our Division III representatives on the Playing Rules Committee is they can delay, reconsider, or implement a rule that's specific to Division III. They can also do that relative to a common rule that may apply to Division III. They may say, hey, there is this common rule we don't think should be appropriate for Division III. So they have the ability to reconsider, not adopt, or delay implementation of a common rule as it applies to Division III specifically. Additionally, for a rule that may not have been considered for the other two divisions, Division III can say, hey, that is something we want to consider, but also consider whether that should be altered, delayed, or reconsidered it relative to implementation specifically for Division III. So in essence, Division III has the autonomy to do what is necessary to ensure that Division III is playing by the rules that are appropriate for Division III. If we can move to the next slide. And the last slide talks about the Management Council's role. What Management Council does is it, at every meeting gets an update on the rules process. How is it going? And we'll constantly be evaluating the rules process to determine if any changes are needed. Just recently made just a series of changes back in October. As I mentioned before, there is a subcommittee of Management Council that was formed to really serve in an advisory capacity. They cannot in and of themselves make a decision on a playing role, but what they can do is inform both the sport committee as well as the Division III members on the Playing Rules Committee about how the Management Council is perceiving a potential rule change. And then the last one is if there is a common rule that is adopted based on legislation that just was passed at the 2025 convention, the Management Council can exempt Division III from a common playing rule. And Jeff will go over that process. So really the Management Council has a multi-pronged approach when it comes to our current playing rules process. With that, I would think I will turn it over to my friend, Jeff Myers.
Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you, Bill. As you noticed, Bill was able to give you some of the summary and the principles behind this federated process. I get to walk you through how the process actually works within the existing common playing rules process. So we're going to start with who's involved. And here's the start of the groups. First, the stakeholders, the Division III membership at large. Division III membership is called on to submit rules proposals, to provide comments and feedback when proposals go out for comment as well. Then we look at the Rules Committee. Rules Committee are association-wide committees, which there are typically 2 to 4 Division III members on that committee. And they're the group that's really responsible for evaluating potential rules and ultimately approving rules or forwarding rules up to PROP. PROP, the Playing Rules Oversight Panel, again, that's an association-wide group as well. They have the final say on any rules. And typically, they will defer to the rules committees unless the rules impact a health and safety measure, harms the image of the game, or has a budget impact. The Sport Championships Committee, that's specific to the federated process. The Division III Sport Championship Committee, they're there to help inform those Division III members of the Rules Committee. And then we have the asterisk on the side with the new process that's created, the Management Council Subcommittee that Bill talked about. What is the general common rules process? This is in really summary form of the existing common playing rules process, the flow of that process. It starts with seeking feedback or seeking rules proposals from the stakeholders, from the membership, all 3 divisions. Then the Rules Committee meets at an annual meeting and ultimately forwards approved proposals out to comment to the division, to the association for comment. There's a comment period. When that comment period is in, it comes back, it's reviewed by that Playing Rules Committee, and then ultimately proposals that are approved are forwarded on to PROP for their consideration and final approval. That's the common playing rules process in very summary fashion. The next slide reflects how the federated process fits into that existing structure. We're not going to look at this in detail because we want to go through sort of each stage in detail. So I want to go to the next slide, Katie. Really the first part where the Division III federated process is interjected into the common rules playing process is right before the annual meeting. Before the annual meeting of the Playing Rules Committee, the D3 members of that Playing Rules Committee will meet with the Division III Sport Championship Committee in that particular sport. And the purpose is, as Bill talked about before, is to inject more Division III perspectives into the process. So those additional members from the Division III Sports Championships Committee will discuss potential proposals with the D3 members of the Playing Rules Committee and provide their input, provide additional considerations and concerns. Also important to note, the Management Council Federated Rules Subcommittee may also engage in this meeting if they've identified proposals of particular interest that they want to engage. Then, at the meeting, the Division III members of the Rules Committee may consider Division III federated rules. So they will vote on common rules consistent with all members of the committee. But then, with respect to federation, and this goes back to the slide that Bill talked about before, they can do a couple things. They can reconsider, delay implementation, or alter a Division III specific rule. They can do those same things for a common rule as it applies to Division III. Or if the entire Playing Rules Committee considered a common rule, ultimately determined not to go forward with it, those D3 members could pick that rule up as well and consider it for Division III. At that point, the proposals will go out for comment, which triggers a couple things. Certainly, it's at this point in which the Division III membership can look at the rules approved by the Playing Rules Committee and potential any federated rules, but also staff has the responsibility at this point in time. Staff will take a look at the rules going out for comment, and in particular with any rules that could have a financial impact or could impact the fundamental Division III principle. Division III staff will notify Nadia as well as the Division III Commissioners Association. And the purpose of that is, first, general awareness of a rule that may have a broader impact across the campus, and two, for those organizations to reach out to their constituents, make them aware, and therefore provide feedback to the survey, again, to increase the input from our Division III membership. So those individuals on the Division III on the Playing Rules Committee, the Division III members, have more of an understanding of where the division is on particular matters. Well, the next step is very similar to what we just talked about prior to the annual meeting. The comments have come back. The Playing Rules Committee will review those comments for all divisions and ultimately determine whether to submit those proposals forward for approval. Before that meeting, similar to the annual meeting, the Division III members of that Playing Rules Committee will meet again with the Division III Sport Championship Committee in that particular sport. Again, the Federated Rules Subcommittee and Management Council may also meet at this time to discuss issues of interest. But the purpose is to go through those comments, look at the feedback from Division III in particular, and again discuss whether proposals should go forward as common or potential federation of proposals. And similar to the D3 members at the annual meeting, they have the same options again for this meeting. They can make decisions on Division III specific rules. Again, they can reconsider, delay implementation, or alter those rules. And they can do the same for a common rule as it applies to Division III. Or they can take up a rule that the entire committee, Playing Rules Committee, decides not to go forward and take it up for Division 3 specifically. The next step, now the rule is potentially going forward to prop for consideration. At this stage, again, the Federated Subcommittee can choose to meet. If there's still issues of concern that they believe prop needs to be aware of, they can meet, discuss the rules that are going forward, and forward on their concerns to the D3 members of prop. Which really brings to the last stage of the federated process, and that's prop review. The first and important piece is that if a Division 3 rule is going forward to prop, only the Division 3 members of prop will vote on that Division 3 specific rule. If a common rule is not supported by the full prop, the Division 3 members similarly can pull that and determine whether it should be approved for Division 3 specifically. Again, only those Division 3 members of prop will vote in that manner. And they may also vote to remand a common rule back to the Playing Rules Committee for Division 3 specific only. The key takeaway here, as in earlier in the process, if a Division 3 specific rule is going forward, it's only the Division 3 members on that particular committee or panel that will vote on that particular issue. Katie, I think there's one more. I think at this time, we'd open up to questions for myself or Bill regarding the process. Katie, were there any questions in the chat?
There were not any questions yet, but as a reminder, there's a Q&A button at the top of your screen if you'd like to ask anything in there, and it'll pop up and I will get it asked to either Bill or Jeff.
All right, Katie. So I don't see, are there any questions, Katie? I don't see any.
There are not.
Okay. We thank you for being on today's call. And of course, if you have questions that come up afterwards, please feel free to reach out to either Jeff or myself. Be happy to answer those questions. And we again, thank you for participating in today's webinar. Take care, everyone.